the debate. Crap. I didn't want me to do that. So,
Is this live?
yeah,
Yes,
live.
we have live already.
Welcome to the debate, guys, if you're tuning in or if you're watching the replay. This is the Deal Party primary, first debate between the two candidates. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hey, so we had an interview with me yesterday. I'm on Schlock, the Jota era, again, rest in peace, and I'm doing this primary. I am Jay Hill, also Joe Hartley. I guess I'm here as well. I signed up.
Okay. Okay, fair
Really
enough.
spelling myself.
Fair enough. Okay, so we're going to do some... Okay, so I'll let IDK do his first opening statement and JHL will start with the questions. So, IDK, if you have a few words.
Yeah, so it's been a very long campaign. We put a lot of effort into this. I just did an interview yesterday, and I definitely did a lot more behind the scenes. You don't need to fact check me on that. You can just assume it's true. And I believe that this party is the only party that can topple reform and Labour and the Tories, the dynamic they've had for years. So I feel like whoever we vote in will have a successful campaign, but I want to make sure that person voting is me, because I do truly believe I bring the best to the table.
Okay, JHL.
I stand for complete and utter honesty, and I believe that I am the only candidate who will deliver an honest, an honest way forward with every working person in the country. You can tell I'm not mad. That's honesty.
Alright, honesty, fair enough. So, I'm going to read the rules. So, in the debate, you're obviously going to be talking. So, I will allow one objection per answer. And a candidate who's answering the question will be allowed, with the other candidate will be allowed to have a rebuttal, which is 1 minute. The answer itself should be 2 minutes. And we're going to alternate between each candidate to answer each question. So, fair enough. There's not many rules.
Practically. I
Okay.
know the rules, so you.
Yeah.
know the rules.
And
So-
okay. So, obviously, the toying toss was won by Adi Kayman, and he said that JHL should go first. So, JHL, this first question to you. The government has delayed PIP and universal credits cuts after a rebellion by 49 MPs. Should the Deal Party push for delaying these cuts permanently, or instead pursue a more radical welfare reform?
The cuts to PIP are not on. We should be supporting working disadvantaged countries, no matter what, because they're the backbone of this country. Enough said.
Okay, is that your answer?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
You can tell I'm not plan to end this.
Okay, IDK man, you have 1 minute for a response to that.
Yeah, I know this is meant to be a debate, but I can't think of a rebuttal to that point because I actually agree with the cuts not being on. I do believe that the decision by Parliament to cut the PIP is quite frankly disgraceful. It's a betrayal of all the people who take PIP or a large portion of our working class. It's sending approximately 150k into poverty, and I just don't think that's on at all. So, I mean, as a party, we don't know if we're going to have a majority yet. It's still a long way, and this actually recently just happened. But one of the first things I'd be looking to do as Deal Party leader is to push to support these people on PIP and make sure they do get their fair share. And I will do that through taxing the billionaires.
Okay, that's 1 minute. It's 1 minute. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next question. IDK man, this time it will be you starting. So, Labour's welfare U-turn exposed tension between unity and principles. How would each candidate maintain party discipline without compromising left-wing values? I'm going to start with IDK man. So, just to answer that question.
Look, when you look at Labour's situation and you try to compare that to the Deal Party, I think you're ignoring the fact that Labour, in principle, has abandoned their values. They've always had a neoliberal base since 1997. I mentioned this in our interview earlier, that since Tony Blair became leader and won and gone to number 10, since he got to number 10, Labour's always been like neoliberal. There's only a small period under Corbyn where they actually represent proper left-wing values. So I do believe when you fracture your party like that, where you try and go neoliberal, but you still have some of the left-wing essence still left behind. A few left-wing candidates. Obviously, you saw Zal Sultana leave the party and form a party. So, yeah, with all the divided Labour Party, I don't think that'll be a problem with the Deal Party because, well, with all respect to my opponent, we have two candidates who will stick to left-wing values, and we're also quite a small party as well. I mean, I know Reform have also struggled with managing their MPs, but I feel like when you have two honest candidates and two candidates that stand for the right thing, there will be cohesion and there won't be much room where we don't cooperate and we don't get along.
Okay. JHL, your response to that?
Again, just completely agree with him. I stand, like I said at the start, on honesty. And I believe that the Deal Party will be an honest party forever. Adding on to what IDK man said, we could also look at the betrayal of the Lib Dems in 2010, when Nick Clegg decided to take his party into a coalition with the Tories, which was a betrayal to many voters who only voted for them to keep out either the Tories or Labour. And he betrayed them immediately by starting a coalition. We will make sure we do not start coalitions or any sort of allegiances with people who don't stand for the same views as us, and that is a guarantee.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, number 3. So, this one is for JHL. The government released an NHS 10-year plan focused on community care and innovation in the digital world. What would your vision be for implementing or improving this plan to reduce health inequality?
Invest for it. The NHS is severely underfunded. The fact that we are underfunded it so much to a point where people are even talking about private healthcare replacing it is beyond disgusting. You look at the insurance-based model in America, let's see how tragic that is. And we want to implement it here through not funding the NHS properly to a point where it will collapse. My main policy would just be make sure we fund it properly. Because free healthcare is one of the best assets this country has going for it. And I would just make sure we put much more funding into it. And to get that money, like IDK man said earlier, I would just tax the rich more.
Okay.
Just fund it more. That's all I've got to say.
Okay. IDK man, your response to that?
Look, the thing is with the NHS at the moment, there's a lot of talks, as my opponent mentioned, there's a lot of talks on private healthcare. And I just think that's completely not on. And the reasons those talks are happening is, as my opponent said, because the NHS is being run so badly where it's to the point that people think the government are incompetent and they just can't be trusted with running it. So why not send it off to some private company or something? And I just think that the ultimate solution to this is funding it, because the Tories for 40 years just didn't fund it. We went through a national crisis, a national pandemic. We went through a national pandemic and the Tories didn't fund it. I can't stress how diabolical that is. We need to make sure we back our NHS and then we'll start seeing results. The solution is to nationalise, not privatise.
Okay. So, number 4. Who did I ask last time? So
Me.
Okay, right. So it's IDK, man. So there's growing questions about the monarchy relevance in modern day Britain. Should the UK replace the current monarch, which is King Charles, with an elected head of state, or is reform within the current constitutional monarchy enough at the moment?
Look, I think that the monarchy is a very important part of British culture. I know there have been controversies surrounding the monarchy in the past, and I know that, many people aren't in favour of it, but I know most of the British public genuinely likes the monarchy. And I know they don't have much use anymore, they don't hold that much power, but at the same time, I think for historical sake and for the sake of preserving the culture of this country, I do feel like we shouldn't take any radical actions when it comes to the monarchy. And I think just reforming the constitution is enough in this case.
Okay, JHL, your response?
My view on this has changed in the past few years. I used to be an anti-monarchist, where I saw no inherent value to it at all, and I thought it was just completely unfair. And while I do agree to an extent of that, I believe that in terms of tourism, in terms of generated income through that, and again, as my opponent said, the historical aspect, I do believe there is some value in maintaining the monarchy. However, whether taxpayer money should be going to that, when there are so many people already struggling to keep themselves alive, essentially, it could be deemed as completely unfair. So, while I would keep it around, I do believe that our tax money shouldn't be going directly to it. We can keep the monarchy around. A lot of people will come just for the buildings, and that will generate income. But I don't believe that it should be state funded. It could fund itself.
Okay, fair enough. Next one for JHL. So, debates over introducing either proportional representation or single transferable vote to replace first past the post have really taken place in Britain, obviously, with first past the post being fractured in recent elections. Obviously, we saw in the NYC mayoral primary the use of single transferable votes. So where would you and where would the Deal Party stand on electoral system reform, and which alternative would best empower voters in your opinion?
We need proportional representation in this country as soon as possible. For too long, there's been tactical voting based on where you live, meaning that some people can't vote for parties they want to. For me, in my constituency, I would have voted for Labour the past few years. Maybe not in the last election, but under Corbyn I would have. However, based on where I live, I simply can't because of the first past the post system. It means that I would have had to vote tactically in order to keep the Conservative Party out rather than who I wanted. And with proportional representation, it will allow voters to actually express their true beliefs and vote for who they actually want to. So one of the first things I do is change the vote where we will take a strong stance on it and implement proportional representation day one.
Okay, Cameron, your response?
This current system of first past the post is a very broken system, and I don't know why it happened, but it's a very broken system, and it's a system that's in place because of the two establishment parties in Labour and the Tories. So it's something that, I believe that as a party, we should be fair and honest, and we should try to give everything a chance. So I believe that it's just in our values, it's in our DNA to switch to a more fair electoral system. Whether that's proportional representation or alternative voting, I feel like it's best to let the people decide on that, maybe post a referendum. So I wouldn't necessarily go for an upheaval of the whole electoral system, because I feel like if a government did that, kind of like a dictatorship, or they're doing this to favour them. No, so I put it in the public's hand. Like, the public can vote for whatever political system they want to implement. Anyway, it's first past the post, whether it's alternative voting or PR. I feel like the public should have full right to decide.
So would you do a system like in 2011 with the alternative vote referendum? Is that what you're suggesting?
I would do that, but instead of like forcing voters to pick, you could only either pick alternative vote or first past the post, I'll just include the more mainstream options like PR and other voting systems. So I will make sure the referendum is more diverse.
Okay, fair enough. IDK Man, this next one's for you. So the Green Party has proposed a £50 billion wealth tax, and some councils are backing the lowest wealth levies. Should the deal party, and would you adopt a national wealth tax or explore green-specific tax instruments? Or what would your way of raising money be in general?
Look, I think that what the Greens are proposing is exactly what we should be aiming to do. It's taxing the rich, taxing the 1%, the most wealthy in our country, and I believe that's where most of the money is, and that's how we will get the funds to actually do stuff. And I know that may cause some speculation on, what if billionaires leave, but I urge voters not to worry about that. Billionaires won't leave if the overall quality of life improves. And the way we improve the overall quality of life, while at the same time taxing them all their money, is just investing into Britain, investing into the public state, making sure our infrastructure is top-notch, making sure our public transport is top-notch. If the rich are surrounded by a country which looks wealthy, a country which they want to live in, then they won't leave. So this is what we have to do to fight as a country. And I do think that if we spend the money in the right areas, we can implement something similar to this wealth tax and get great results out of it.
Okay, Jed, show your response.
The biggest plague in British politics is wealth inequality. And how do you solve wealth inequality? Through wealth. I'd argue the Green Party potentially don't go further than 50. We need to tax the billionaires to a point where we can become sustainable based on that tax. And if they don't like it and they want to leave, so be it. Their assets are in our country and our land, and we will simply nationalise any billionaire company. And all the money generated through that will come straight into the UK government's pockets and then back into the country.
So you want to. So you want to. Do you want a future where there's no billionaires at all?
Yes, billionaires shouldn't exist.
Wait, Cameron, do you agree with that?
When there's only one, even if there's only one child on earth who is going hungry, the fact that billionaires exist is disregarded.
Cameron, do you agree with the idea that there should be no billionaires on earth as long as there's one child hungry there?
Look, I'd love to condemn my opponent on this and call him like a radical communist or something. But if you consider the amount, like how much is 1 billion? Imagine a millionaire. Think about how rich they are, right? It's like a millionaire, a couple of million, 2-3 million, even 1 million. You don't need to work. Like you can live a fairly comfortable life. Maybe not a lavish life, but you can live a comfortable life for the rest of your life if you have 1 million from this day onwards without working. You're saying that you don't have to work a single day in your life if you have 1 million. So imagine having 100 times that. Sorry, no, not 100 times that, 1,000 times that.
1,000 times. I've got a stat here about some billionaires.
Go on.
So to fix world hunger across the world, some figures suggest it would cost around 40 billion per year for the next 5 years. Elon Musk is worth 409.8 billion.
Okay.
That would be his net worth wouldn't even half.
So that would do it for 1 year, right?
No, 40 billion for 5 years.
Oh, 5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He
Fair
would be
enough.
completely fine. And yet, he's still allowed to have his money, and there are still people dying every day because of food shortages,
Okay,
and
fair
because of
enough.
water shortages, and because of other illnesses around the world. And he's got his billions, and yet I'm a radical to not want a billionaire to exist. I think there's enough said with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. So, this is the next question. This one is for JHL. So, there's always been recent escalations, and obviously the UK's arms sales to Israel are being challenged in court at the moment. What is your position, and what would the deal party's position be on Israel and Palestine? And how would your leadership call for a ceasefire, maybe sanctions, or maybe a recognition of a Palestinian state?
Israel is a terrorist state committing a mass genocide against the people of Palestine. Israel should not be allowed to continue in its current state under the leadership of Netanyahu, because I believe he is committing a genocide of innocent Palestinians every single day. My party is an immediate ceasefire, the end of the war immediately, and then discussions about the solution which will stop people dying every day.
Okay.
What was that?
Fair. Ali Khayman, you
As
response?
well as that, can I make another comment?
Sorry.
We are not a pro-Hamas party. Hamas are a terrorist group. We condemn their actions of October 7th still, and the terrorist acts committed then and since and before. We are not pro-Hamas.
So,
We just simply suggest that Israel are the ones still committing the genocide.
so just to follow up, would you then imprison Benjamin Netanyahu for his crimes as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Ali
He's a
Khayman,
war
your
criminal,
response.
He's a genocidal maniac.
All right. Okay. Ali Khayman, your response to that?
Yeah, just to echo JHL's previous point on Hamas, we believe as a party, and we both agree on this, that both Israel and Hamas both the Israeli government and Hamas are terrorists. They're both terrorists, and we do not condemn October the 7th. However, no one
You said we did not
sheds a light
condemn.
on... Sorry?
Did you say we did not condemn October the 7th?
We condemn October the 7th, my bad. So, we condemn October the 7th, and it goes without saying that Israel's actions are evil, and that we should not supply arms to them. We should do, as DHL said, we should do everything it takes to call for a ceasefire and make sure the death toll stops. Because innocent Palestinians are dying every day, women and kids are dying every day, and this is just not something that should be permitted to happen under any scenario. And the fact that the West is so complicit in this, the fact that the US is still funding Israel, both Democrats and Republicans, the fact that the Labour and Tories and Reform are all pro-Israel and fund Israel, or they would fund Israel if their government. The fact that they're all shills for Israel is an absolute disgrace, and us as a Labour Party, we don't like that. We don't support terrorist states, we support peace and prosperity.
I have a
JHL.
stat here. 70% of Conservative MPs are funded by Friends of Israel, which is essentially a group that supports the genocide happening in Palestine. And 70% of Conservative MPs.
They condemned Palestine Action as a terrorist group, by the way.
I know.
Even when they're
Okay.
peacefully protesting.
So follow-up question for both of you.
Based
What-
on the following decision, I'm not going to comment on that.
Follow-up question for both of you. I mean, obviously, they have been prescribed as a terrorist organisation, Palestine Action. Do you agree with the decision? Do you disagree with the decision? And what are your overall thoughts on it?
Which one of us do you want to go with?
Let's go with you, Ali Khayman.
Okay, so I think the recent decision in Parliament is an absolute disgrace. And frankly, I don't believe there was something wrong with the bill. It was because there were two other groups that were clearly terrorists in there, and then they just grouped Palestine Action there. And I don't see how that's been made to pass. I think it just shows that the system in Parliament is broken and needs reform. But the point is, not reform UK, it needs just electoral reform in general. But the point is, Palestine Action is not a terrorist group, and we should not condemn groups that just basically call for stopping a genocide. And we should be open to criticizing Israel as a nation, especially considering the crimes that they've committed and how evil the government of Benjamin Netanyahu has been.
JHO, your response?
Nothing more to say, just completely agree with it.
Okay, fair enough. So, I'm sure both of you have heard, both of you discussing it before the debate, that Zoe Sultana and former Corbyn allies and Jeremy Corbyn himself have just launched a new left-wing party. What are your overall thoughts on it? Do you think the Deal Party should work with them, maybe compete against them? Or what are your overall thoughts? And this is for you, JHO.
I believe it is potentially the wrong time to have another split in the vote for the left party. I believe this will left-wing party. I believe there needs to be unity within left-wing parties. I believe that if the left are going to be in separate parties, there should be a planned coalition between the new party with Jeremy Corbyn and as well as the Green Party and obviously us. But now is not the time to divide. We need unity, especially with the looming threat of reform. However, I do agree that the Labour Party is no longer left.
Adi Cameron, your response?
Look, as JHO said, I'm gonna agree with my opponent again. I'm not to, because as JHO said, it's like the left wing right now cannot afford to be divided. Sure, we may not agree with Jeremy Corbyn or Zoe Sultana on everything. We may not agree with the Greens on it, but we all stand for relatively similar things, and that's that we want to see the establishment and far-right collapse. We want the best for our nation, even though we have different viewpoint. And so I feel like, in that sense, maybe a merger, a coalition, or just forming one party would be the best in this scenario. And I think it's the only way that the left has a chance of winning. It's a very rough political climate, and I feel like it's a time where we have to show unity, not divide.
Okay, fair enough.
Build bridges to unity.
Fair enough. So there's also obviously increasing support for the Scottish independence movement after the referendum. There's also support for Welsh autonomy and maybe Northern Powerhouse projects. What role should the Deal Party play in expanding devolution or supporting independence movements across the UK? And this is also including Northern Ireland. I didn't mention it, but it's also including Northern Ireland. And I'm going to start with Adi Cameron.
I mean, the UK has been historically made of these nations, and there have been conflicts. Obviously, you think of Ireland back in the 1960s, 1970s. But I do feel like this is not a time where the main issue is independence. This is a time where we have to be united as one. It's a tough political climate. It's a tough climate in general with lots of infighting, and I feel like for now the importance is unity. But if the populations of Scotland, Wales, or even Northern Ireland ever do want to separate or ever show willingness, then I do think maybe a referendum is in place. I don't know, but right now it's not a priority for us.
JHL, your response?
A problem we have in this country at the minute is a lot of our politics is based solely on London, and if you want to go wider, England, where the Welsh, Scottish and the Northern Irish almost get forgotten about. At the Deal Party, we will not forget about these people. We will make sure that their thoughts and opinions are heard and acted on, and everyone in the United Kingdom that stance, people won't want independence because we're providing a good deal for them. However, obviously, it's not always that simple. And I believe that if a country wants independence, we shouldn't stand in their way. It will be a democracy, and it's what they want. And if it's what they want, and it's democracy, then it's fair game.
Okay, follow-up question for you. How would you ensure that their voices are heard like more clearly, as opposed to the current system?
What was that, sir?
How would you ensure that the voices from Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland are heard more clearly, as opposed to the current system?
So there is genuinely across the country there is a funding problem where a lot of our funding goes towards the south, more specifically the south east, but in general the south east, where everything gets done there and nothing gets put in Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. So we will listen to these people, listen to what they need in their country, whether it's new infrastructure, whether it's new job opportunities come in, new public transport, etc. We will listen to them and make sure we're providing what they need to live a happy, safe, fulfilling life.
Okay, fair enough. So, as you know, recently there's been media and pressure groups are often becoming biased, and obviously there's lobbyist groups which are obviously getting involved in politics. For instance, AIPAC in America has been famously influencing politicians all across the spectrum. How would the Deal Party tackle media distortion and lobbyist influence in British politics? This one is for Jake.
Yeah, so on lobbying should be illegal. You shouldn't be allowed to pay someone to make a review, because I believe that is just corrupt and influences people against their will. And with the media, I will have a policy on complete honesty, and if it's deemed dishonest, proven by a non-government funded court of law that it's dishonest, that people will no longer be allowed to be running this country. I will also make it that you have to be a British taxpayer in order to run newspapers or the media in this country. If you are not a British taxpayer, you can have no say on British politics.
Okay. IDK man, your response? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and skip it because I think he's dealing with something else. So, for now, I'm going to ask you about immigration. So, obviously, there's ongoing debates about... Obviously, we saw last year with Rwanda and Rishi Sunak, the deportation scheme and the channel crossings. How would you craft a humane, more effective immigration platform that balances compassion, but also control and consensus?
We need a more efficient process. Put it simply, at the minute, people are left on the shore essentially for way too long, with no hope of ever being processed in this country, which leads to more people coming in illegally because they've got no hope of coming in legally. So my way of doing it is a quick, effective processing system that will make sure that people who will be of great economic benefits are allowed to come in and work and benefit towards our country, whereas people who are not will not be granted access to this country. And while that may seem harsh, if they're deemed potentially a threat, it's in the public's best interest not to have them in the country. Which, again, is harsh, but it's the reality. We need to think of our country first at the end of the day, which I know is a right-wing attitude, but it shouldn't be seen as that.
Okay. So, because IDK Man is tending to issues for himself, instead of pausing here, I'm going to just ask you some quick fire questions. You just have to answer. Okay, you're back. Never mind. I'll still answer the quick fire questions because I still think it's interesting. So, IDK Man, I'll repeat the question. So there's ongoing debates about whether Rishi Sunak's Rwanda deportation scheme was ethical and whether Chinese crossings are too high. How would you craft a humane, effective immigration platform that's both empathetic but also has a sense of control?
Look, I think what Rishi tried to do with Rwanda was frankly evil and just shows how far the Tory party has fallen, right? So, hang on. It's just showing that Rwanda is a country with like little to no human rights. It's very unethical to send immigrants who have already they're fleeing these type of countries and you're just sending them back. So it's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? And you're spending it's pretty pointless. So I think that in terms of the immigration crisis, it's not a high priority for me because I do believe there are bigger issues in this country tend to now. But I do believe that in general it's important to keep immigration to a controlled level and also to make sure that immigration is happening in the right places. For example, we still have shortages of workers in the care sector, and you'd think with how high immigration is right, that these shortages would be filled, no? But they aren't. So it's really a question of not only a controlled level of immigration, but also reforming the immigration system, making sure we take the right immigrants in and not the wrong ones. I think that's the big issue with Britain at the moment.
Okay. Obviously, you guys share a similar platform. There's been a lot of agreeing in this debate. So, to each of you, what's one thing that you disagree with your opponent on and you think they're wrong on? I'm going to start with IDK, man.
Well, my opponent, I haven't really seen my deed. It's, I'm not really, you kind of put me on the spot.
Okay. I'm going to rephrase the question. How would you do things differently to your opponent?
Okay, fine. I feel like my opponent is too emotional. I think my opponent means good, but he is too emotional and too far left in a lot of things. People call him a communist. They call him Johar Lane. I prefer to call him Johar Stalin, if you know what I mean. So,
Okay.
That's tragic, man. Oh my god. Did you write that down?
No, I thought it would have started it. Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, the point is, I feel like my policies are more level-headed and coherent and more realistic, I feel. My tax plans for the rich are more realistic. I'll do it in a way where the rich don't get driven away, where my opponent seems that he doesn't care that the rich get driven away. So, because it's important to have that money in our country. So, yeah, the whole point is, I feel like my policies are more level-headed. His are more, more up in the clouds.
Okay. JHL, and what would your answer to that question be?
I'm excited with the fact that the F1 driver supports me and football team supports also Bosch. I would probably just say the opposite. I think this country needs radical change. Some people call him Arnie Schlock, I call him Arnie Clegg. Right. Because of the fact that I don't think he goes far enough. I think we just change. I think people are desperate for change. I think we need to do everything we can to make their lives better.
Okay, fair enough. So we're going to move on to a quick fire round.
I have no idea what to say.
We're going to move on to a quick fire round. So we're going to give short answers or one word answers, whatever, to the following questions, and we're going to start with JHL this time. Nationalised water, yes or no?
Yes.
IDK, man.
Yes.
Jeremy Corbyn, asset or liability? IDK, man.
Uh, Mixed.
JHL.
Bit of both.
Okay.
It's meant to be one word.
Well, I mean, it's not one word, but it's just a short response. It's a short response.
Okay.
You can feel free to like disagree with each other if you want. You don't have to like. Okay. Ban
I
scrap.
think it's fair. It's a bit of both.
Okay, fair enough. Banning private schools, yes or no? JHL.
Yeah.
IDK man.
Yeah.
Yes, but slowly.
Can you explain?
Yes, but quickly.
We need to phase them out. It's like banning private schools is like a very. It's not as simple as you think. If it was as simple, then I'm sure Corbyn would have promised it in 2019. It's something that I do feel that needs to be done. We do need to equalise education, but it's something we can only do gradually. We have to make sure it's a gradual change, but eventually we get there, and that starts with phasing them out. Heavy VATs, heavily defunding private schools, and even like grammar schools as well, because if they exist, then if private schools don't exist, then what's the point? So it's like you need to see the problem with immediately cancelling private schools is that you put a lot of burden on the public school system, which you can't immediately fund. It's too much to do at once, too many spaces to fill. But so the only way to, in reality, move people from private schools to public school, I believe, not public school, comprehensive school. The only people to move people from private to comprehensive is to make sure we elevate the burden on comprehensive schools, and this can't be done immediately. It's a process which takes time, in my opinion.
JHL, any response?
Do we have time though? Because I believe it's so crucial that every child in this country gets given an even playing field. And this has not happened ever, really. The rich will always get the advantage, and we need to cut it out as soon as possible. And we need to do everything in our power to do it as soon as possible.
I agree.
We need to tax the rich very quickly and use that to fund it, and then fund the schools a lot more. Because there is no money in schools at the minute. We need to fund them more. We need to get rid of the private schools. I need to get rid of grammar schools. I don't believe in segregation based on education when you're in year 6.
So, if you
stupid. But I think we need to just get rid of them as soon as possibly, and gradual, maybe too late.
So a follow-up question to IDK man. I just want to ask. So if you were to increase VAT, would you not agree that that would phase out the middle class and make private schools exclusively to upper class people?
Kind of, yes, but the point is that these middle class students, they shouldn't be incentivized to go to private school. And increasing VAT is not just the only thing. It's just in general, as we face these private schools and we slowly abolishing private schools, it's just we need to already take what we implement, universities, for example, considering comprehensive school students, state school students with a pinch of salt compared to private school students. We take those mitigating circumstances we use for comprehensive school students and apply them tenfold, because frankly the disparity is under-exaggerated. It's a lot more than people think. So I feel like as a temporary solution we should aim to make sure the state school students get a fair deal through mitigating circumstances and support schemes. But in the long term the goal is abolishing private. This way I feel like we have a short-term solution and a long-term solution, and that solves the crisis of always change and everything.
Okay, I'm going to move on.
I believe we will lose the trust of our voters if we say, "Oh, it's another graduate scheme," because you hear it all the time about these graduate schemes that end up going nowhere. We need to take action quickly.
But do we have the position? Do we have the resources? Do we have the realism to take action?
I say within a year, yes.
Bold talk.
Okay, I'm going to move on from...
Rubbish bin. What people deserve.
I'm going to move on for now. So, to next quick fire. Should MPs earn the average UK wage? Yes or no? JHR, I believe.
But on the average UK wage.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't believe they should be paid more than the average worker. Because I don't believe people should be earning extortionate wages anyway. Because I believe that again, when there's people who can't afford to live, no one should be earning ridiculous amounts. I don't see why they shouldn't be earning an average wage.
Okay.
I don't have much more to say.
Okay. IDK man?
No, but I would support decreasing the amount they currently earn. But I don't think they should be earning the average wage.
Okay. It's a bit of contrast here. Do you want... I don't know. What are you guys' reasoning for that? I'm going to start with JHL. Okay. I'll start with IDK man then. Okay.
Okay, so I don't want to sound snobbish here, but think about the importance of being an MP. Think about the political importance of that job. You're essentially in a position where you run the entire country, and that I feel like most people would agree when I say a position with that kind of pressure, with that kind of that kind of mental resolve required to do what's right. It's a position where you think, oh, maybe they're doing something hard in the average UK. I don't think it's a stretch to say that by any means. I think, why does a doctor get paid more than a constructor or a builder? Both are obviously important, both are cornerstones for society, but it's harder to be a doctor, isn't it? Just like it's harder to be an MP. So while I do think MPs shouldn't be paid extravagant salaries, I think fair to give them decent enough salaries above, not too above, but fairly above the average wage. But in general, in terms of the average wage, that does need to be increased a lot more. So I do think at the end of if I do get elected, then at the end of my tenure, the average wage will be a lot closer to the MP's wage. But I do still think the MP should earn more than the average person.
Okay. Fair enough. So...
How long did I cut out for?
Not long. Don't worry. Do you have anything else to say? No, I didn't hear an answer past his explanation. So.
Yeah, okay. So essentially, in order to connect ourselves to our working people who vote for us, I believe giving ourselves a higher wage is not acceptable because it puts us above them. I want to show that I am one of them, and I'm doing a job just like them. And like I came out at the end, average wages should be higher. I believe that the top earner at a company should earn no more than, let's say, around 20 times more than their lowest paid. This is the random number to throw out there, which would increase the national average wage. But I don't believe we should be earning more than that, simply because I don't want to create an us versus them.
But you are one of them, aren't you? You're holding a position of power that the average working class person can sadly, they'll find it very hard to hold. So I don't think
I am one of them. I am a British citizen. We shouldn't divide ourselves into classes.
Not everybody in a society is going to hold a position of power like this. It's a scenario where very few people get to hold this power.
Just because I'm in power doesn't mean I am above them in any way. I am representing them. I am a public servant. I will not consider myself above.
We can be different from them without being above them. It's a false equivalence you're doing.
I would do not want to consider myself different to my constituents and to my population. I am one of them, and I will represent their views as part of their community.
Okay, sure. Keep believing in that.
Okay.
And I'll believe in.
Okay.
I do truly believe in the power dynamic. I do truly believe that we can, even though we do hold differences, we can set aside it, and I can still.
That's the problem with politics. It's the problem with politics. Politicians view themselves as different and don't associate themselves with the people voting for them. We can't view ourselves as different. Just because I'm not working on a construction site or in a school or whatever other job you can think of. Just because I'm not working there doesn't mean I'm any different from them. Just because I have power and parliament doesn't mean I'm different. We are all people.
This is exactly what communism is based on, guys. Everyone's treated the same. Exactly.
I'm not saying treated the same. Everyone should be treated equally in a sense that no one should be treated as inherently better than someone.
MPs being paid the same as the average worker. It's the cornerstone of communist society. It is.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm gonna move us on. So, obviously, you were talking about Mamdani's manifesto the other day with me, and you mentioned free buses. Would you implement this across the UK? This one's for IDK man.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that free buses is a great idea, and if we can do it, then we should do it. In general, we should make sure that our public transport is high quality, first priority, and the second priority is that it's cheap and affordable. Actually, no, scrap that. Ideally, both. Ideally, we have public transport that's high quality and cheap and affordable, and potentially free. You know, who knows? We'll see how things pan out, but I think that policy of Zohan's is a great success in NYC. He represents a lot of values that are similar to your party, so he is the goat. Alright. And I can't wait to see how that pans out. So yeah, I do agree with him. A lot of free buses is one of them, yes.
Yeah, I can't say much more than that. Public transport in this country is a complete and utter disgrace. The privatisation of public transport is nothing more than an abject failure. Transport in this country compared to Europe is more expensive and of worse quality, which is a disgrace. We need to fund transport, especially outside of London. We need to make it affordable and cheap, and there will be no need for it to be free if it's affordable and people are getting paid a decent wage where it's affordable to pay. There's environmental benefits to it. Using one vehicle instead of several cars is much better for the environment going forward, and it's what we should be doing going forward in order to protect the planet. There's so many benefits to it, and the lack of funding is a complete and utter disgrace. And we will make it a priority in the Deal Party to fund transport more.
Okay, I'm going to move on. So, would you say that Just Stop Oil are helping or harming the cause? JHL.
I completely agree with the message of Just Stop Oil, because the environmental factors of oil production and what we're doing at the minute is unacceptable, and it's going to kill the planet. It's going to affect my generation, children's generation, children's generation, and I believe in their message wholeheartedly. However, the way they're going around it is pushing people away from the movement. People are seeing that they are blocking roads, protesting in art galleries, etc., and they just simply see them as a public nuisance. We need to change the perspective on that. We need to make it an inviting and welcoming movement for everyone, for more people to support it, instead of a divisive one. And that's why it's probably more of a detriment. However, don't get that twisted with me saying I don't agree with their message, because I absolutely do.
Okay. Ali Kayman, what are your thoughts on it as well?
Yeah, I think Just Stop Oil, they have a good message, but it's the problems with spreading it. You make yourself out to be a nuisance if you interrupt if you stand on the motorway, for example, and spread protest your message, you're not really getting the point across, because you're just making some average world-class man late for work, you know? You're just ruining their day. They might have had some special
ambulance delayed.
Imagine someone in traffic waiting for the birth of their child, for example, and they miss it because of a Just Stop Oil protest. That was a specific example, but it's just not making yourself own companies, we want to save the planet, which I do think is a high priority. I do believe in eco-sustainability, that we need to portray this message to the people in a way that doesn't ruin their day, in a way that they can get back.
Can I add another comment on this?
Yeah, no problem.
I just want to say I don't agree with protesters just before being arrested. I don't think any protester in this country should be arrested for expressing their views unless it is actively harming someone. If you attack someone, that's
follow-up question.
Protest.
Follow-up question to that. You said any protester unless they're causing harm. What about the protesters who maybe attend like a far extremist rally, like maybe like some extremist rally, like a Nazi party rally or something like that? What would you do there?
There's a difference between free speech and hate speech. I consider hate speech to be directly harmful. However, if you are protesting, say, a left-wing policy as someone who believes in right-wing policy, well, I disagree with you. You should have your right to express that opinion as long as it isn't directly harming someone.
Okay.
Freedom of speech is
Fair
important, but freedom of hate speech isn't.
So where would you draw the line with, with far-right politics and free speech and hate speech? What would you consider the line?
So, hate speech, let's say, racism's off the line, but people can't control, really. So, you can't control your race, that's completely unacceptable to make protests around that. Sexuality, the same. You know what I mean, stuff like that, really.
Right.
But say we introduce a policy to ban private schools, for example, and people want to protest that, it's within their right to do it.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll move on now. So yes or no, does the UK still have an empire mindset? IDK man.
I think we've left the days of the British Empire behind us. I'm not saying that we should not be. We've done some bad things in our past, but I'm not saying not be proud of our culture, but rather we shouldn't necessarily be proud of the empire, if I'm being honest. I know people will disagree with that, and that's perfectly fine, but in my opinion, the empire oppressed a lot of people. It did some good things. It was better than most European empires, actually, in the sense that they built infrastructure for the people. They felt that, they built infrastructure for their colonies. They weren't that inhumane for that. Or they owed them that debt. But overall, I do think that the British Empire was a bad thing, an oppressive thing, and a lot of people under the British Empire suffered, and it's something that should not be revered with admiration today, in my opinion. I mean, people are entitled to their own opinions. I'm all free speech, and that's just my opinion, People disagree with me, that's fine. I'll pass on to my opponent now.
Yeah, I don't think people have an empire mindset anymore. Like you said, I think a lot of people just want to live happy, fulfilling lives and hardly think of the empire. But as my opponent says, there is no shame in being proud to be British. I think it's often seen as a right-wing thing, or being proud of where you're from and liking being British, where, yes, we've done a lot of things wrong, but you can't change that. It's who we are, and you shouldn't be ashamed to be proud of that. As long as you're able to reflect on bad things you've done as well, which I don't necessarily see as a bad thing, because we can reflect on the bad things we've done and show how we've grown as a country and gotten better. So, that's where I stand on it.
Okay. So, next question. Yes or no? Universal basic income should be implemented in the UK. JHL, just yes or no?
Probably not immediately.
IDK man.
Hang on 1 second. I agree with my something that we should do gradually and something that takes time to implement. So, as with all our other policies, we're promising so much already. So, something like that will take time to implement. So, no.
I think what we need to focus on right now is making sure the income for everyone in this country is suitable enough for them to survive.
Right, here's an easy question. Should the UK suspend arms sales to Israel? Yes or no? IDK, man.
Yes, of course. Suspend arms sales to Israel immediately.
JHL?
I feel like we...
Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah.
We're going to say...
No, it's just quite obvious. You asked the question on Palestine, so I think I already said it there, so I think it's quite obvious we suspend arms sales to Israel immediately. They're a terrorist state. Benjamin Netanyahu is absolute scum and is a war criminal and should be imprisoned.
JHL?
The fact I know my tax money is going towards weapon sales to Israel makes me sick. It should be stopped immediately. Day one of us coming in and stopped. It shouldn't be happening.
Okay. Next question. Should landlords face rent caps? Yes or no? JHL.
Housing shouldn't be seen as a luxury. It should be seen as a necessary asset for everyone. So I don't believe that anyone should be priced out of buying a house or renting a house. If you look at the rest of Europe, they've got a rented attitude where people won't buy houses, they'll rent them, but people will have houses. I think we need to do everything in our power to make sure that everyone has a house. Because it isn't a luxury, it's a human right, in my opinion.
Okay.
And still on renters caps, yes, I think there should be caps on rents. Full stop. Move on.
Okay. IDK, man.
Yeah, I agree with my opponent. Housing, I feel like we should live in a country where every person has food, water, and housing. Food, water, and shelter. Those are the three minimum requirements to human life, in my opinion. And the fact that we live in a country where so many people are homeless, so many people go without food and water every day, it just makes me feel absolutely rotten to the core. And we have all these billionaires in their luxury mansions. They just pile all that money away, never ever spend it, while all those other people could really use it, So it's something that we should definitely work on tackling, and I believe if rent caps have to be implemented in order to do that, then I say implement rent caps and cover whatever losses we may have with tax money from the billionaires. It just comes down to that.
Productivity in this country will improve, more people have houses to live in.
Exactly.
Okay. So, next one. So, obviously there's been strikes in NHS. Are NHS strikes always justified? I'm not sure who I asked last time.
You asked the IDK.
Okay, so UJHR. Yes or no?
No, it's IDK man first now.
Okay, no worries. Sorry. IDK man. Are NHS strikes always justified? Yes or no?
Always justified. But if they have a reason to strike, if they feel like they have a reason to strike, then yeah, I say they're always justified. Because a strike, do you know what has to occur for a strike to, take place? There has to be like a strong majority of workers that are disgruntled or not happy. And in recent cases especially, with all the burdens we've chest, we've seen more strikes, and it's understandable, And I feel like if we just funded the NHS more, these doctors got paid more, they got better working conditions, then we wouldn't be in a situation where we have to talk NHS strike. And not whether the strikes are the problem, but whether the funding of the NHS is the problem. And I do truly believe that that's how it comes down to. We have to fund it more and make sure these workers, these tireless, extraordinary NHS workers who give our all for this country, they carry this country on their back and we treat them like dirt. And I no longer want us to be a country where that happens. So I do truly believe that we should back NHS workers no matter what. If they have a reason to strike, then let them strike, and we'll listen to them, and we'll strike a deal with them.
JHL?
One of my favourite things about pre-Blair Labour was the fact that they were very, very pro-union. And I consider myself to be very pro-union, pro-workers' rights. And I believe that under the current state of the NHS, their strikes are warranted, and I'll continue this. I'm surprised they don't strike more. Their working conditions and their pay is frankly unacceptable. And the fact they're not striking more than they are should be seen as a blessing for everyone in this country, that they're continuing to work. Under my leadership of the Deal Party, I will stop the strikes by giving them no reason to strike. Working conditions will improve, pay will improve, their lives will improve. And that won't just go to the NHS, that will go to everyone in this country.
Okay. In your opinion, what is the biggest political betrayal in the last 10 years? JHL.
Of course you have to say 10 years.
Just
Sorry,
a
avoid
question.
one there.
Just a question. Just a question.
So in the last 10 years, if you're talking UK exclusive, because this is a UK...
Or just, no, it's any country you want, if you want. Just any
I'm
political
still
betrayal.
going to stick to the UK, because it's a UK-based event, and I will say that Labour's shift to go in more centre and now more right in order to appeal to people on the right rather than their socialist background is a betrayal to everyone. Not just because of the fact that a large portion of their voters voted for them expecting a left-wing option, but the fact that they are letting people down after 40 years being let down before. I find it unacceptable.
IDK, man?
Yeah, I don't think I have a different answer to that. You can say the Tories did a lot worse things, and I tend to agree with you, but I've always considered the Tories to stand for the wrong thing, to stand for more evil things that shouldn't be in UK politics, in my opinion. But I mean, that's a democracy, so that's just what happens. So I think the Tories, they stuck on brand and they failed, just as usual, in my opinion. But what Labour have done, they've completely abandoned it. I think it's absolutely shocking. In a time like this as well, the Tories spent 14 years ruling our nation, and you think Labour, with the roots in like pro-workers unions, pro-workers, the party of the working class. You would think the party of the working class sticks to the working class this time, right? But no, Keir Starmer is just another neoliberal who cares about, who pushes neoliberal ideology that Thatcher originally adopted, and as a result, we've not seen our country get any better. It's all Labour's fault, all Keir Starmer's fault. So I do believe Labour's betrayal has been immensely disappointing, and it's pushed obviously this new left-wing party. There's been changes in the Green Party and this Deal Party here. So I feel like Labour's betrayed a lot of voters, and I want to get back those voters. I want to create a party where the left-wing vote, the working class vote, can feel safe to vote for.
Okay.
IDK man, can I ask you a question?
Go on.
Would your answer have changed if it was 15 years?
15 years.
Yeah, we're not going to go into... We can go into detail on that later. I'll just move us on now. Because we're running out. We've got... If you want... Okay, fine. I'll do an additional question. Okay, I'll make up a question. I'll literally make up a question. I'll make up a question on the spot then. What do you think Nick Clegg should have done differently when he saw the exit poll in 2010? JHL, you're very animated in this issue. I'll ask you first.
Depends what he stands for. If he is truly a Conservative, then he did the right thing. He managed to create a Conservative government. But if he is what he said he was, and I vote for someone who doesn't want either of the two parties to have failed them in the past.
Okay, I'm gonna reword the question.
Years,
I'm gonna reword the question. So, what would you have done in his shoes if you were in his position and you saw the exit poll?
have rather, at the time, formed a coalition with Gordon Brown's Labour Party, not necessarily because Gordon Brown directly agrees with my political point of view, and I know it wouldn't have had the majority. I would have formed a coalition with them and another party, but I would have formed a coalition with them because their plan to get us, Gordon Brown's plan to get us out of recession would have worked, and David Cameron's plan did not work. And I believe the country would be in a better place if the Gordon Brown government with a coalition of the Lib Dems and another party was formed, it would be a better place.
Okay, Ali Cameron, your answers to that?
I would never form a coalition with the Tories. I think they're absolute scum. So in the next election, I would never form a coalition with the Tories unless they basically agreed with all of my policies. And I mean all of them. So it would have been like... It would have been like we're in power, but obviously they're not going to do that. So I would never form a coalition with the Tories. I would have tried to form it with Gordon Brown. I think it would have been a lot of parties, but I think it would have been much better than the deal we got with the Tories. What they did to our country. I think 5 parties, maybe a bit unstable, but it could not have been any worse, frankly. That coalition.
It could have not been worse than the Tory government.
Anything would have been
You talked about unstable and then mentioned the Tory, but come on, that one party would have been
exactly, yeah.
Fine, a coalition.
Okay, so I don't know. Did I ask? Okay, so this one's. I don't know who I asked. I keep forgetting. My bad. It's IDK man now, right? Okay. So, should there be unions in every workplace? Yes or no?
Yes, I think all workers deserve to be protected, and all workers deserve fair rights, and that includes being backed by a union.
Okay, and JHL?
Yeah, unions are pretty sick, aren't they?
Fair enough.
I agree with them.
Okay, fair enough.
I've made my opinion clear on unions earlier.
Yeah, fair enough.
They're an integral part of the work.
JHL, first one's to you. Should 16-year-olds be able to vote? Yes or no?
JHL?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a tough one.
Okay.
Well, I think. See, when I was 16, I would have said yes because I thought I was politically aware of it. Whether you are or you aren't, it's a different matter. I think it's risky. So I think a lot of people, when you're 16, don't know enough about anything at that point. Even at 18, it's debates. I think 18 voting age is probably fine for now, but if there was a referendum and people wanted it to be 16, I am not against it. I'm going to firmly sit on the fence here.
Okay. Very centrist. IDK man?
Hell yeah.
It's a tough one. You can decide, you can hold a referendum, as JHL said, and think, so 16-year-olds vote, but then who's voting on the referendum? It's going to be the regular voting ages, right? So 16-year-olds won't get a say on their own referendum, will they? So it's a tricky situation. It's
maybe make the referendum with 16-year-olds.
Whoa, that could be an idea.
Oh, we could be cooking here.
It'd still be outflanked, to be honest. It's I think 18 is fine. I don't think there's any problems with it. Because 16, you're still developing.
I think back to when I was 16, and in the beginning I was not ready to vote then. And I was more politically aware than a lot of 16-year-olds. And looking back, I was not.
I mean, it depends person to person, but overall, I think 18 is a safe age to vote, and we've not had any problems with it, so why fix what's broken?
Okay, fair enough.
Ban over 17 from voting.
Oh, interesting. Would you make them take a mental...
It's a half joke.
I know you're joking, but would you make maybe over 65s take a mental aptitude test before voting?
If you want me to go completely radical, I believe you need to have some sort of political awareness in order to vote in this country. Because I believe too many people vote without actually knowing what they're voting for. Where you either need some form of education to make sure people know.
Are you talking about reform voters by any chance?
But who decides who passes these tests? Who decides
An independent body not associated with any political party.
Do you think that company can't be bribed off or paid off by certain political parties?
We will make it illegal. If those payments happen,
Obviously.
They can have all this
my anti-lobbying stance continues even to these regulatory bodies. And we
Firstly,
will be all sides of the political spectrum in order to build these tests.
Firstly, I think it's a communist idea, and I think that everyone, no matter what their intelligence, should have the right. I know it's the hard truth.
I agree with you. Everyone should have the right to vote, and that's what I'm saying. We need to educate more on politics. That's the main stance of the
I do agree with funding the education system. If we were to fund the education system more and make sure to push away disability.
Not even just in schools, in the workplace.
In the workplace,
Elsewhere, there should be regular training for it, but it's probably a less extreme approach. But we need to do something because too many people are swayed through fictional media stories that are just plain lies, like the exaggeration of the immigration crisis, people thinking that people are coming here just to kill and rape. So it's just, there's so many lies going on, we need to make sure of that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so next question, just one word, well, 2-word answer. TV license, keep it or scrap it, JHL.
Maybe unless it's
Scrap? IDK man?
Keep or make it cheaper. I don't believe entertainment. Entertainment some people like, but I don't believe it's a necessity, so I wouldn't be strict on like, I wouldn't say strictly like make it free, or like just, scrap it, but I would say just make it where that it's affordable and it's like, doesn't make much of an impact,
Okay.
My opinion is I don't think it's going to be particularly important going forward. I believe that you want a completely different conversation. The days of terrestrial TV is on its last legs.
That's a different
license will die, and the TV license will die with it, which is probably my stance on it. But yes.
Okay. Pretty easy question. Is Labour still a left-wing party in your opinion? Yes or no? IDK man.
Nope. No
JHL?
chance.
They are the Tories.
Okay.
Tories in bed.
Okay.
Tories with a red tie.
Okay. Speaking of Tories, name one Tory policy which you'd keep in your government. JHL.
What Tory policy would I keep in my government? Hard to say really, because they oppose my views so many ways. Give me a second to think of that. Not planned anything. I guess what you could say is, in the current political climate, the Green parties are opposed to the UK having nuclear weapons. It's the more conservative idea, the fact that we should keep them. However, I believe the nuclear deterrent, again in the current state of the world, is important.
IDK man.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything else, so I'm just going to go with DHL's answer. Nuclear deterrence, there's a lot of tensions in the world right now with Ukraine and Russia and Trump winning with his tariffs, so I believe it's important the UK has security in the form of nuclear deterrence, and I don't think that's something I want to take away from our nation. I feel like I don't want to leave our nation defenseless on the front line.
My overall opinion is there should be no nuclear weapons in the world, full stop. But I am not running to be Prime Minister of the world or an MP for the world government.
Okay. And final question. So let's say there's someone watching this and they don't know who to vote for between you two. How would you convince them to vote for you? I'm going to start with JHL. I think.
I pride myself on my honesty. I believe everything I say, and I am not to lie to you. And I will transparent and deliver for you and not for someone else. I will guarantee my promises and I will make your lives better.
Okay, IDK man, your statement to the person watching.
I am a candidate that will always put the working class first, no matter what. Everything I do will be first. I will make sure I tax the billionaires. I will make sure I fund the public sector. I will make sure we live in a society that is safe and affordable. I will stick up for anyone in society. I will stick up for every single worker. I will make sure you all live happy, healthy, and prosperous lives, just as you deserve. And I truly believe that my policies are the only policies that are realistic enough for this to become a reality. And that JHL's policies are communist and won't come to fruition.
Okay. Thank you both. It's been a great debate. I think.
Can I just finish? Can me and IDK finish on one bit here?
Okay, go ahead.
The Deal Party is on a bender.
Nick Clegg is a sex offender.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you and good night.
Both. Thank you. It's been a great debate. I think you've both given yourself a good account for the win. I will announce the winner in due course. Obviously, you've both been brilliant tonight. And yeah, I think it's been good. It's been good. It's been about an hour and 20. So you guys have talked a lot. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. Alright, see you guys.